Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we are very happy to have with us His Krishna Navina Krishna Prabhu and this weekly remembrance of Srila Guru Maharaj. So I would like to request Her Grace Prema Manjini Mataji to kindly introduce Prabhu and begin the session. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you, Remember Prabhu. Hare Krishna Naveen, so nice to see you. Jai. Sorry. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Charu Swami Snegda Chaita Supranita Vadinam Charan Satputam Prabhupada Gatapanam Bhakti Charu Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Vadi Charu Shesha Shamadi Paschatya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Asari Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Vanchakalpatra Vescha Kripa Sindhu Vescha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Hare Krishna Haribol Naveen, we're so happy to have you here. Thank you for taking out time from your very busy schedule. Please excuse my voice. I'm just getting over the flu. So I'm sure everybody knows Naveen, but it never hurts to glorify a nice devotee, especially someone like Naveen. So Naveen met Guru Maharaj in 1993 at the Manor. He helped to start the Pandavsena Youth Group in 1993, and they were very instrumental also in the fight for the Bhaktivedanta Manor. Guru Maharaj was very fond of the Pandavsena group. Guru Maharaj was very fond of Naveen, very, very fond of Naveen, as well as his whole group of boys. There's Sandipan, there is Pradyumna, there is so many of them. So Guru Maharaj was very fond of this group of young boys. Naveen was initiated in 2001. He set up the Avanti schools in 2005. I heard Guru Maharaj once said that Naveen's name will be written in golden letters in the annals of ISKCON's history. So that can give you an idea of how appreciative Guru Maharaj was of all of Naveen's services. He received the OBC, the Order of the British Empire, OBE, Order of the British Empire in the year 2018 for services to education. Sorry. He is the chair of the trustees for the Bhaktivedanta Manor. Naveen was also very instrumental in bringing Guru Maharaj's Vaku to Mayapur when Guru Maharaj disappeared. And for that, I don't know about you all, but I'm eternally indebted to Naveen, because for me and for many of the older disciples, Guru Maharaj resides eternally in Mayapur. So that was a very, very, very important service you rendered to Guru Maharaj Naveen. For that, we will all be very grateful. Naveen is a personal friend. He's a personal family friend. He is Kanjanator's favorite mama. He's the coolest mama in town. Kids are really fond of him. He's also Srila Dharma Prabhu's brother-in-law. His sister, Shri Radhika, is married to Srila Dharma Prabhu, so they are personal family friends as well. So Naveen, I don't know how else to introduce you. You're such a fine young lad, done so much, achieved so much. Guru Maharaj is so fond of you. So I will hand the floor over to you now. Thank you, Naveen. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that, especially for the description of young. I'll just repeat some prayers if that's okay. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Charu Swami Nityanamine Snigdha Chaita Supraneta Vaganam Charasubatam Prabhupada Gata Prana Nomni Bhakti Charupadam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sati Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. I'm conscious I'm probably the most junior person on this group, seeing some of the names on here. So bear with me while I'll just try and share some memories in an attempt to try and help us kind of just reflect on some of Guru Maharaj's so many wonderful qualities and experiences that we all had with him. Yeah, and thanks very much for the introduction. It was funny when you were speaking about Kanja and Nitai, who's my sister's son. Somebody introduced me as Kant's mama. So it was kind of interesting to see where different people see ourselves as. But you'd mentioned, so yeah, I met Guru Maharaj just in 93. It was Jamnashtami actually. It was the Jamnashtami festival at the Manor, and Guru Maharaj was visiting. It was the first time I'd met him, saw him, and I think the first time I'd really met any guru or sannyasi in ISKCON, because I was previously just kind of involved in the background more so. So that was a really wonderful, it was a very short experience, a short exchange, just a few seconds, just an introduction. But I remember it like it was yesterday because it left such an impression. And just from that first initial exchange of an introduction, I recall feeling this sense of this is a very special, not just a special person, but a very somebody. The distinct feeling was this is a very kind-hearted person. This is somebody who's very, very sensitive, very kind of spiritually kind of aware in that sense. And then it wasn't a full year until I saw Guru Maharaj again. And in that time, I got involved, as you'd mentioned, with setting up Pandavsena and the campaign to try and keep Bhaktivedanta Manor open, which was, so Guru Maharaj in the early days, at least from my recollection, in the early days of the campaign, he wasn't like when we set up Pandavsena, he wasn't involved at that point. But very shortly thereafter, from about 95, I recall Guru Maharaj coming more and more often, and he became so involved. Like it really surprises me when I think back at it in terms of how much he was involved with Pandavsena, like everything from the managerial side to advising us how to structure Pandavsena, like how to set up the teams, how to kind of, like from a very hands-on perspective, all the way through to obviously like the regular kind of talks and inspiring. He'd come to any program we'd ask him to do, like literally anything, like even if it was the biggest university program where we had a big festival, all the way through to just meeting a few individuals, he would want to be involved. He placed so much emphasis on nurturing the younger generation, so much emphasis on trying to ensure that the young people within our movement had a place, had the opportunity to contribute to Krishna consciousness. And I remember him saying to Shruti Prabhu and Prana Prabhu that whenever he comes to the UK, he wants to make his time with Pandavsena a priority, because there'd always be so many calls on his time and so many different devotees wanting to call him to their homes or to programs. But he always made it a point, and he would do the most like interesting kind of fun things with the younger generation, like whether it was one day he just decided like, okay, it's a nice day and let's go for a picnic. And then, we just organized a picnic and we went to a park and had a picnic. Another time he said, okay, call everyone over and I'm going to teach you all how to cook. So we called everyone over and he did a whole kind of cooking workshop and things like that. And it was just like for us, I was at the time, 19 years old. And a lot of some of the other guys were either slightly older or slightly younger, and boys and girls. And I just remember this feeling that everyone felt he was able to create like this feeling that we were actually part of a family. Like, we talk about being part of a family very loosely sometimes, like ISKCON's a family and this is a family and we're all like, we talk about it a lot, but actually to manifest that and for people to really feel it, that's a rare thing, I think. And I haven't seen that so often. And it's, where you find it, it's something special. And he was able to create that with people, not just who he knew, but with people who he didn't know at all. And whether it was the boys, the girls, I remember like Nilamani, my wife, was also reflecting that there was never a time when her or any of the other girls felt like unable to do something or kind of distanced or anything like that. Like they always felt so much included and valued for whatever they were doing, as much as the boys did. And it was, I think, just as we all know, as disciples or followers of Guru Maharaj, that he just had that ability to do that with anyone he was in contact with. So that was really kind of some exchanges that we had between the early days, from my early days, from 95 to about 96, 97. And of course, 96 was when Abhay Charan filming started, and Guru Maharaj was very busy with that. So nevertheless, he was still visiting the UK. And it was in 99 that Abhay Charan was filming in London. So we got quite involved with that. Prashant Prabhu, who's and Harsharani Mataji, who are I think they're on the call. They very kind of kindly opened their home up, and Guru Maharaj stayed there. And a few of us, like Dina Krishna, Sandipan, Dhruva Maharaj, we were staying with Guru Maharaj at the time. So not necessarily in the same home. I was fortunate enough to be staying in the same house, but we were kind of staying full time to help with the program, and it went on for a few months. And I look back, and it was one of the most transformative kind of periods of my life, because spending that time seeing Guru Maharaj every day, like constantly, like day to day, moment to moment interactions, like there's just nothing to replace that. And I was lucky enough to drive Guru Maharaj every day. Like I was with him, so I was kind of his driver, kind of just doing some whatever stuff he like a ad hoc type person, because Srivas Prabhu was there and Chandrasekhar was there also. So they were the mainstay kind of personal servants and secretaries. But his relationship with us, as in like with Dina, Sanipan, myself, I think it was very different, because I could see him, like he was so strict with like Srivas Prabhu and others, like some of the other brahmacharis. And with us, he was just like so lenient. Like we would get away with blue murder and he would not say anything. And he would just, I guess because he knew that, we were brought up in the West, like we had no kind of training in the ashram. We had no, nothing like that, but he kind of detected at least a semblance of desire to do some service and help. And so he fanned that, and yeah, he just let us do whatever we wanted, and kind of just was always there to guide us. And some of the instructions he gave us then during that time, in terms of really emphasizing the importance of Srila Prabhupada's position. And this was, before the times like now, it's become much more pervasive. But that was at a time when it wasn't so pervasive, when everybody wasn't talking about it so much. And Guru Maharaj, as we know, felt the need to really emphasize and safeguard Srila Prabhupada's position in ISKCON as the founder Acharya and the institution's kind of eternal preeminent Shiksha Guru. So he would spend a lot of time just with us, 1, 2, 3 people in a room, just talking about the importance of that, the importance of dedicating our life to Krishna consciousness, despite whichever ashram we chose to take up, whether we chose to stay in the temple or outside. This kind of emphasis that even if you're staying as a grihastha, you need to, like, it's your responsibility. You need to give your life to Krishna, like that. And then some other kind of more like other instructions, like his emphasis on devotees working together after they left university, so that they stayed in Krishna consciousness, to try and set up projects which would facilitate that, helping to build financial security for ISKCON, and his ideas for that, and just creating exciting projects for preaching, for sharing Krishna consciousness with others, and for enabling the young people to come forward and be involved, because he felt also that that sometimes young people may not want to be involved in the kind of standard fare that's offered in ISKCON temples, and that they may need something quite different, especially those who are going to university or who may be kind of more differently inclined. So he was always so sensitive to that, but some of the times, like there were so many funny incidents. I mean, very instructive incidences during Abhay Charan, but also some really funny ones. And like one time, Guru Maharaj, he woke me up. It must have been, I don't know, like 2 o'clock in the morning. So he came downstairs. I was downstairs in Prashant Prabhu's place, and in a sleeping bag. So Guru Maharaj shook me, woke me up. So I got up, and my instinctive reaction when I wake up is to look at my watch. So he shook me. I looked at my watch, and I realized that was the wrong thing to do. And he's like, just get up. So anyway, so I got up. So then he became very serious, because he said, Mr. Sumanjalu, who was the person who played the actor who played Srila Prabhupada in the series, he said, Mr. Sumanjalu is having heart pain. So so he took me upstairs, and I went into Mr. Sumanjalu's room, and it was clear that he was struggling. So then, we said we have to take him to the hospital. I can't remember who else was awake by then, but we had to take him to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and then and Guru Maharaj, is obviously really concerned. I mean, he was concerned. Clearly, he was concerned because he's concerned for everyone, and but he was also concerned because this is the person who's playing Prabhupada. So we took him to the hospital, and then we were there like it was a long time. And at the end of it, Mr. Sumanjalu had this thing in his mouth. So the doctors did all this stuff. They did the ECG, all the tests and everything. And then they said, like, what's in your mouth? And he had this indigestion tablet in his mouth. So they were like, he just got indigestion. I mean, there's not a heart attack here. So like Guru Maharaj was like, so like, he got so, and then, but he was so concerned, like you can see, he was like very, very worried. And then when he heard that, he was just like, he was just like laughing, like so hard that he was, it was just, and another time, so again, at Prashant Prabhu's house, so Guru Maharaj said to me, he was having a very, there was another person, I can't remember who it was, it may have been Srivas Prabhu, in the room, and they were having a very tense conversation. And somebody had called for me. So I opened the door, walked in. I could tell it was a tense conversation. So Guru Maharaj said, sit down. So we were speaking. And then he said, go and call Chandrasekhar. So I went to go call Chandrasekhar, but Chandrasekhar was asleep in his sleeping bag, as he does, like he was very regimented. And so I went to call him, and he said, tell Guru Maharaj I'm sleeping, because he was already asleep. So I went back and I said to Guru Maharaj, Chandrasekhar Prabhu was sleeping. And Guru Maharaj just looked at me like what? He goes, tell him I'm calling him. So, so I went back, called him. And then for it must have been at least half an hour. It felt like a lifetime, but he was chastising Chandrasekhar Prabhu, and then he called up the other house, because we had these. So Guru Maharaj had borrowed Radha and Krishna deities from Ajit Prabhu's place. These are Radha Krishna deities that he had, and they were the deities that Guru Maharaj was using for the scene for installation of Radha Landaneshwar for the filming. So he'd promised Ajit Prabhu that he'd look after the deities and take care of them, and he'd return them like that. So he'd taken on that personal responsibility. And then what had happened was somebody had phoned Guru Maharaj and said, the house where the deities were, they'd phoned Guru Maharaj and said, Guru Maharaj, the deity's finger has broken. So Guru Maharaj became really serious. Like he was like so serious and really heavy. And so when he was chastising them, he was really, I mean, I've never seen Guru Maharaj ever like that before, then, or after. Like it was just like the most intense I've ever seen him. And he was like, you all have no kind of sense of how to look after the deity, and you have no sense of, and I can imagine you're not looking after, like really like just pounding the point. And we were all like, just didn't know where to look. And so that kind of transpired. And then he said, now I'm going to have to phone Ajay and tell him that we've broken his deity. And so then he phoned Ajay Prabhu, and he explained, and he said, I'm so sorry, and like that. And Ajay Prabhu replied on the phone. He said, oh yeah, don't worry, that finger was already broken. We just glued it back on. And Guru Maharaj was just like, he came off the call, and it was just like all the anxiety was just like gone from it. It was just, again, it was just like, just very he could see that in the transition, not just in a material kind of mundane way, in the way that we may feel like, that's one thing I don't have to worry about, but he could see, like, I could always feel like he always saw Krishna's kind of, hand in everything. And I think that enabled him just to go with stuff, like as in whichever way things were manifesting and unfolding, and that he had just there was a very special. And during that time, I was driving him almost every day to a health club, so Guru Maharaj could go swimming, and he would go to the sauna and jacuzzi and like that, and he'd say, like, I mean, those are very kind of special moments also, because it was, most of the time it was just myself and Guru Maharaj, and he'd just be speaking on so many different topics. And one of the greatest regrets I have in my life is that I never recorded those conversations or noted them down. But they were very wide ranging, and again, just to more than anything, I felt like the actual presence with Guru Maharaj, the influence that has, is just something that you can't pin down onto a specific thing or a specific instruction. It's very hard. I like, just the other day, somebody was saying, somebody asked me, like, can you recall a time when like a significant change in your life happened? And the moment I instantly go to is when Guru Maharaj's Vyas Puja was held in New Vrindavan, and it was in Prabhupada's palace. And there were a few days then when I stayed over, and I was with Guru Maharaj. I was helping Srivas Prabhu serve. And I remember just going into that, into those few days. And I remember how I felt coming out of those few days. And I remember that in that period, I literally felt myself change, like in terms of my mentality, in terms of who I was. And it was as a direct result, because the way in which I changed, I felt like I absorbed, just a fraction of Guru Maharaj's, like, kind of, something that just helped me just create a step change in my spiritual life. And I think that is the, we hear that just a moment's association with a pure devotee, what that can do. And it's when you experience that, like, you actually realize that this is what the scriptures are talking about. That actually, when the scriptures speak about this, it's not a poetic expression, or a theoretical one. It's a real one. And when you come in contact with that type of status of devotional love that somebody possesses, it kind of leaves just such an incredible impression. And then, sorry, I'll fast forward because I'm speaking too much on this bit. So yeah, then 2001, 2003, first and second initiations. 2004, I was myself and Nilamani, because I was married at the time by then in 2003, and then Ram was a year old. So we'd gone to Ujjain in 2004 for the very first deity installation. So again, Guru Maharaj was, you know, like I remember when Ram, he must have, yeah, he just turned 1, and he was like, you know, Ram was playing kind of a 3-beat on anything he would find, whether it was a tabletop or a or something, you know, anything that would make a sound. So he was like crawling around. So I was speaking to Guru Maharaj. I was sat on the floor. Guru Maharaj was sat on a chair, and Ram was like crawling around trying to find something that would make a sound. And he was crawling around Guru Maharaj's feet. And it was, you know, like I was thinking, so part of me was feeling, well, he's in the right place, and part of me was feeling he's creating a bit of a disturbance, so to pull him back. So I reached out to pull him back, and Guru Maharaj said, no, just leave him, he's fine. And then as Guru Maharaj saw him like playing 3-beat on something, like his first thing was like, just get him a mridanga, you know, like get him a mridanga. So from Mayapur we got him mridanga, and like he was so personally involved. And I think all of us have experienced this, that he was personally involved in our lives at the most minutiae kind of level, where we felt that he was just, I mean, it just had such a kind of an endearing effect, like whether it was involved with like, so for me, he did kind of Ram's name giving ceremony, sorry, not name giving, his grain giving ceremony. And then it was in the temple room just after class. And I said, Guru Maharaj, you know, he needs to get his grains. Can you just put the spoon in his mouth kind of thing? And he said, no. He said, like, have you, so he did that. And then he said, but then he made it into like a whole big thing. So I just thought Guru Maharaj would just put the spoon in his mouth and we'd be done. But he like called all the devotees over. He got a garland. He did the whole thing. And then he got he made us get the gold and the Bhagavatam. And like, so like, it wasn't that he was doing it just as and you can sense that it wasn't like he was doing it just kind of because somebody had asked him to. He was doing it out of genuine affection. Otherwise, like, you know, why would you do so much things and when you're not even being requested to do that? And he did Lakshman's name giving ceremony. So I collected him from the manor and was going back home, and he was like saying, I've got 2 names. Which one do you think is better? So I said, well, you just choose whichever one. And he asked again. And after the 3rd time, he said, okay, I'll just pick one. And then he named him Lakshman. And then he gave us such helpful parenting advice. So for somebody who's never been married and had not had kids, I mean, I've based my like entire like parenting philosophy and also my kind of understanding of education based on Guru Maharaj's instructions, like on what he had just and I suppose that shouldn't surprise us or surprise me, because that's what it means to be in touch with, to see through the eyes of scripture and to be in touch with Krishna, that you have knowledge which isn't kind of, necessarily just book knowledge, and just so insightful in terms of how to raise children, at what stage they need different kind of influences, and disciplining, not disciplining, the role of the mother, the father. I mean, these things were like, I'd never heard it from anybody before, and to hear it from Guru Maharaj was like just so special. And as I say, like for me, it just like was the most wonderful thing. And then so after so just backtracking a bit on a slightly different topic, when I had finished university, and had been working for a couple of years, or a year, sorry, I'd been working for a year, and I'd asked Guru Maharaj like what he thought. So this was in 97. and 97 going on to 98. And I was asking Guru Maharaj like what he thought would be best I do, like whether I should be thinking about joining the ashram or working or studying further like that. And at the time he'd kind of said, that he thought that I should study further. And I then went on to kind of do the MBA, and his kind of thinking behind it was that he wanted the younger generation to do something for Srila Prabhupada in the sense of in the world. And he felt at that time he was instructing us to kind of go out into the world and do something which for Srila Prabhupada that would just raise the profile of ISKCON in society, that would bring others to Krishna consciousness, and that he always had this thing that it was with young people where that kind of hope lay in terms of creating a revolution, doing something different, and he wanted that to be a focus, and therefore he encouraged a lot of us. I remember at the time I remember him even saying, "There's nothing wrong in dreaming." And I was thinking, like, from a Casey perspective, you can look at it from different perspectives. But he was making the point that, like, just dream big, just think of big things to do that you can do, and like Krishna would decide whether it becomes manifest or not. But from our perspective, from our role as devotees, aspiring devotees, that that we should be at least contemplating these things and trying for them and generating the desire for them, because from that desire, that will help our own spiritual life. And I felt that so much has helped many devotees in who he was telling at the time and instructing us in that way at the time, because it has helped us center our lives around Krishna in a way which otherwise I don't think householders are often able to do. Like sometimes with, once we get married, sometimes there's this idea that, well, I'll just work for the next 25 years and then I'll look forward to retirement, and then I can dedicate myself to Krishna consciousness after I retire. And he added a different dimension to that. And that dimension was that, no, in whatever you're doing, wherever you are, in that time, make that Krishna conscious, and somehow find a way to channel Krishna consciousness into your life. And if it's possible, think about things, projects, other initiatives, which can manifest Krishna consciousness in a way that you can dedicate yourself to that, instead of dedicating yourself to an employer or a company or somebody else from whom you're just going to get some money, and your life otherwise in terms of your work doesn't have any direct sense of purpose, and therefore may or may not kind of be helpful to your Krishna consciousness in that sense, other than obviously your own personal sadhana and any monetary contribution you can make to Krishna consciousness. So in that way, it was so profound, kind of his thinking about it, because it's a fact, like that sometimes there's this idea that if you want to dedicate your life to Krishna consciousness, then you join the ashram, the brahmachari ashram. And Guru Maharaj's perspective wasn't like that. It was like, whether you're in the brahmachari ashram or in the grasa ashram, you should be dedicating your life to Krishna consciousness. And it's our challenge to see how we can make that work. So again, just it was a very different perspective to any I'd heard before at the time. Yeah, then in 2003, 2003, we started thinking about Avanti, or what we didn't have the name Avanti at the time, but started thinking about school projects and schools. And 2005 was when we got permission to set up the first Krishna Avanti school. And again, like Guru Maharaj became so like supportive and involved with that. Like when we opened the very first school, Guru Maharaj arranged for the deities. He arranged to have the deities made himself. He arranged for the altar to be made and shipped across. He came to the groundbreaking. He actually arranged, even before the deities, he arranged for Ananta Shesh to be made in India, and with the jewels on the heads of Ananta Shesh to come. And then he brought Ananta Shesh here. He conducted the groundbreaking ceremony. He was here, of course, for the deity installation, and he was here for the kind of the formal opening of the school, and gave the speech at that formal opening. Again, just really like whatever anyone would like try and do, he was always just like so supportive. And even when we were much later, but just on the same topic, when much later, a couple of years ago, when we were planning the Om Nom restaurant project, because Guru Maharaj had always wanted us to do restaurants, like ever since, I think it must have been 2000 when Guru Maharaj went to South Africa and we accompanied him, that he, and they'd obviously got restaurants in South Africa, and he was saying that, well, how comes we don't have more restaurants in London? And so he'd always wanted us to do a restaurant or a group of restaurants in the UK. And it took us a long time to get it off the ground. We tried different things didn't, ideas didn't kind of fructify. But at last, a couple of years ago, when we were planning the Om Nom project, he came to the site. He was really just very like super interested and enthusiastic, and that enthusiasm obviously gives us all hope and life, because we know that if we're pleasing Guru Maharaj, then it's going in the right direction. And so, and then I'll just end by just saying a couple of things from just prior to when I've said this before in a previous course, so apologies for repeating myself. Just some devotees asked me about it. So prior to Guru Maharaj making his last journey from the US to India, in April of that year, it was around, I think it was the 5th of April, Guru Maharaj called me and said that he had this idea, and he said his idea was that we should ask the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, to lead the country in prayer. And at that time, India was going through, some, obviously COVID was very prevalent around the world, especially in India at the time. So he was feeling that it was a way to introduce a spiritual level consciousness at a country level, which of course has not really been done before. And just the thought, like just the idea of, and I think that was just like typical of Guru Maharaj, that he was just very innovative in the way that he thought about giving Krishna consciousness to others, that he thought about it from a completely micro, like a individual person by person perspective, but also like a completely macro, country level perspective as well, and yeah, on this instance, it was the country level, macro level, which he was just saying, we should get the Prime Minister to lead the country in a prayer, and could I help facilitate that? And so, because I know somebody who's connected there, so I said, yeah, so I could try and put that idea forward. So that was that. And then once we ended the call, he mentioned a few other things. And once we ended the call, then and I went and made some inquiries. And then the next day, he called me back and he said, I've had another thought, and I know what type of prayer that the Prime Minister could say. And it was interesting because he was saying that he could call different spiritual personalities, but on this call he said that his idea for the prayer was the Gajendra prayers. And the reason why, and I was intrigued by that. So I asked Guru Maharaj to explain a bit more. And the reason why he picked the Gajendra prayers was because he said that, like, the Gajendra prayers are completely universal. Like if you read the Gajendra, I went away and read the Gajendra prayers, and it struck me how in the Gajendra prayers, in the actual Sanskrit, Gajendra is not referring to God by name. He actually doesn't know who God is. So whilst in Srila Prabhupada's translation, he's using words, I think he uses Narayan or Vasudeva or like specific words, but in the Sanskrit, he's referring to a concept more than anything. And so Guru Maharaj felt like this was something that anyone from any faith, any tradition could relate to, the Gajendra prayers, because they're so universal in the way that they kind of appeal and make a plea of surrender to God. And so he did that. That was kind of on his mind, and he even drafted a letter to the Prime Minister, which he asked me to kind of edit and forward on. And so that was, and then just a few days later, just before he was leaving India, then we spoke again about this. So it was something that was really important to him, and it just, for me, it was my last interaction with Guru Maharaj, personal interaction with Guru Maharaj, and I felt very fortunate, obviously, to have had it, especially because it gave me that insight into his such a broad perspective, reminding me of how Bhaktivinoda Thakur often writes and about universal spiritual principles based on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it was just wonderful to see that from his perspective, from Guru Maharaj's perspective, which was so practical and real in terms of in terms of the importance of giving that Krishna conscious message, but in a way that anyone from any background could accept it. Just a very inclusive approach. So I'll end there, if that's okay. And I think very much you just kind of suggested that if anybody had any questions that they may be able to ask. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So much, Naveen. If anybody has a question, they could please raise their hands. I have a question, Naveen. Could you share with us some instructions or exchanges that Guru Maharaj you had regarding the education service you're doing for the children, the schools you've set up? What is Guru Maharaj's vision?
Yeah, okay. Just because I think the voice didn't come out. I heard the question, so I'll just repeat the question for those who couldn't hear it so well. The question was, could I share some experiences or instructions from Guru Maharaj related to education, since I'm involved with the Avanti Schools Trust, so in the education sphere. And yeah, so there are a number of things. Many of you have heard, I think, that Guru Maharaj telling that story of a fictional story of a young boy who it's a long story, so I won't repeat it, but essentially how a young boy grows through kind of different stages in life and then comes to the point of setting up a political system, and the idea of that system being inculcated into the education system, about how the education system should be able to cater for different personalities and hone in on the most essential spiritual principles. And that kind of, I remember hearing that in the back of a car, and while Guru Maharaj was speaking, he was sat at the front. And for me, it was very kind of, very important, and it planted a deep seed with this notion that, to change culture in a society, to change or things at a very kind of system level, that we have to be able to input at the education level, at the education system level. And that starts with the very young age. but also grows as they develop their character, etc., through different habits and practices. So his vision that I understood and that I spoke to him about when thinking about Avanti was that these three things, so we have three principles in Avanti, which one is educational excellence, and that's about academic standards and the standard of education as you would expect. The second is around character formation, and that's really about developing, it's about developing obviously individual character and how that comes about. And then the third one is around obviously the spiritual insight and the spiritual kind of, and these three things were what I gleaned from conversations with Guru Maharaj in terms of what he was emphasizing, like what are the most kind of key aspects of what an education system should be able to provide and be able to differentiate for different psychologies, as we know in the Varna system. But at a high level, that these three areas should be catered for and should be nurtured. And so, yeah, we've got obviously, our first school opened in 2008. We have 11 schools open now, but like, I never understood how profound and how deep and how important a job it is to get that right. And we've got a long way to go to achieve the kind of aspirational ideal that I know Guru Maharaj had, but it feels like those are things that we have to strive towards if we really want to influence society and create individuals of ideal character, of ideal kind of, who can be the real examples, as Guru Maharaj would often say, the real examples for people in society, and who can be leaders, not from both a personal character perspective, but also their ability to understand the spiritual essence of things. And so that their thinking, their decision-making, their impact on society would be different to anything a purely materialistic education would be able to deliver. So that's a kind of he said so many things on education, which,
So Naveen, with now I think you have the schools, it's been more than 15 years you want these schools are running. For what we have seen in ISKCON is that we have not really been very successful with our education system. We don't have a very good track record per se within ISKCON schools. We've lost a lot of generations of devotees. But in your experience, are you saying, like with the Avanti schools that you set up, are you seeing the children, apart from blossoming academically, do you see them also, Krishna conscious wise? Are they, are they getting a taste for spiritual life? Do you see that? Do you see the results?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So yeah, we've been running 13 years, and you see, like at primary school, like primary school kids, they're the most enthusiastic, compliant, they will do whatever you want, and they'll like, their favorite time in the day is going to the temple and chanting for the deities, right? Like they are as Krishna conscious as you can imagine. Secondary school is where it hits, and we're growing at a scale. So like, to give you a sense, we have about close to 6,000 children across the schools, and like 99% of them are not from devotee families. We can't hire enough. We don't have enough devotees to hire every year to fill our schools, because we're hiring like 50 to 100 people a year. So like, there's the scale of so we're actually slowing down now in terms of growing, because we feel like we've got to a scale which is a good scale, and we can really hone in on creating the mood that we want to create in these schools. So I would say that it's mixed. We're definitely not there. 100% we're not kind of where we need to be. But what gives me real kind of inspiration and enthusiasm is that where we get it right, and where we get it right often is where we've got young, often largely devotees who've come through Pandavasena and become teachers. And where those individuals are in front of kids and they're teaching them, those kids are just flying in this, like kids who are coming from non-Hindu families or non-devotional families. They just, yeah, they take to Krishna consciousness. And Guru Maharaj's point was also like, so imagine in one secondary school, we could graduate 200 children in a year. Okay. So if you're graduating 200 children in a year and you're doing that across a few secondary schools, you're graduating quite a few kids per year. Now, not all of those kids are going to become Krishna devotees in this lifetime. But Guru Maharaj's point was that at least they should all be favorable. They should all understand and appreciate the value of Krishna consciousness, though it may not become their own faith or whatever, but they appreciate it has value. Then another percentage, whatever that percentage is, another percentage will be supporters. They'll be favorably inclined and involved and supported from a slight distance, like congregation. And then others will be like fully like involved. And we're seeing exactly that spectrum. We're seeing that spectrum exactly, like those kids from, you know, different backgrounds, different faiths or whatever, who just become like very appreciative of Krishna consciousness because they realize this is something of real value. Like there's something serious here. Like it may not be my faith, but I can really value it. And we're seeing those who are like, them and their families and all the rest of it are coming to the temple. And we're seeing those who are like now chanting 16 rounds and all the rest of it, but who've gone through the kind of system. So it's a mix. And I think that if you know, like Prabhupada built a house in the whole world, etc., the whole world could live. I mean, we have to be able to cater for everyone. And it can't be like a cookie cutter approach where everyone has to fit in a box. And if you don't fit in the box, you don't have a place here. And that was Guru Maharaj's kind of broad vision, that everyone has a place. And to the extent that they want to take it up and take up spiritual practice, that's up to them. And our job is to offer it in a way that's nice and palatable and exciting. And then it's between them and Krishna, like, you know, how little they want to take. So yeah, like that's what gives me hope and inspiration and enthusiasm for the future, is that I really do see so much potential and so many people from so many different backgrounds, cultures, faiths, being positively impacted by it.
That's really wonderful. If you're turning out youth who are favorable, you know, today or tomorrow.
You've gone quiet again. Sorry, Prema.
Oh, I'm sorry, my internet is not so good. So no, it's wonderful that you have you're churning out youth who are favorable to Krishna consciousness. That's amazing. I remember Kanja telling me that the last time we came to London, my son was telling me that when all the kids, they go to hang out in anyone's house, the first thing they do is they have half an hour of kirtan. And that was really, really wonderful to hear. You know, that little kids, it's a rule, you know, it's a standing practice and they love it. They have kirtan and then they hang out and do whatever they want. But yeah, that's really wonderful. I think we have a Mataji, her hand is up, Prema Pallavi. Mataji, kindly unmute yourself.
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Happiness to Prabhupada, advice to Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for sharing the interactions with Guru Maharaj. It was all in the past. While Maharaj was wanting the minister, I was just feeling like Maharaj had contributed so much, just not within India, but outside India and the United Nations, establishing schools. And now that the Padma Awards nominations have come, would it be possible that we could nominate Guru Maharaj for one of the Padma Awards? And now that you have some interactions in the PM's office, I thought I'll take this opportunity to see if, not that I'm being greedy, but it just came to my mind and I thought I'll just put it out.
Yeah, okay. So just to be clear and for the avoidance of any doubt, I have zero interactions with the PM's office. I'm a nobody in London, and so but I do know somebody who has some connection. So to be honest, I don't know what this award is.
So this is one of the highest highest awards that are given to different walks of life in India. It's called as the Padma. You have the Padma Shri, Padma Vibhushan, Padma
yeah,
Bhushan.
right.
So the nominations just came out yesterday from the PM's office. I was told I got a message from someone, so we can nominate, and they go through that. And if we have connection, like I know higher level, it helps. So if someone can share your WhatsApp number, I can forward you the nomination sheet, and there are certain things that I felt this could be an offering to Guru Maharaj for all the contributions he has done.
I'm happy to help in whichever way I can. It feels to me though that something like a nomination at this level should probably come from India, and like I can help do whatever I can do, but like so many senior devotees who would be able to provide a much better perspective from the India perspective. And then I think the international perspective is almost like the cherry on the cake, and
Right.
kind of putting it through the right channels.
Yeah, I think we should provide all the documentation. Paymanji Mataji, do you think something can be done? Because I know, I don't know when the last day for the nominations are, because as civilians, we can do it, and then the government goes through its own process. So just thought. Sorry, Prabhu, I didn't mean to take topic off, but I thought let's put it out there.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Navin, one last question for me. Could you share something about parents, specifically parenting instructions? Any personal instructions Gurmaj gave you?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few. I can share one, which is quite funny actually. So when Lakshman was born and Gurmaj came to do the name giving, so he's 2.5 years younger than Ram. So so we were speaking to Gurmaj, and Nilamani was asking Gurmaj about instructions of how to raise the kids. So she was saying, because Ram was 2.5 by then, so she was trying to like, and her and I would disagree, like how much we should push Ram to, practice spiritual, well, sadhana basically. So whether that's deity worship, chanting rounds, like that. So I was much more on the liberal end, like, just let him be and do what he wants kind of thing. And she was much more on the kind of wake him up for Mangal Arati and get him to chant one round, all that stuff. So I said, okay, Gurmaj is coming, so you can ask Gurmaj like what he thinks. And so after Gurmaj performed Lakshman's name giving, then so she was asking him questions like, can you explain what should happen when? And so he said a few important things. Like one, he said that, he repeated Srila Prabhupada's quoting Chanakya, that between the ages 0 and 5, you just shower them with love. So he said a bit more. He was saying that between the age up to age 5, that the love of the parents just builds that complete security for the child. So whatever comes after that, the child is fully secure that this person, that their parents love them. And then after 5 to 15, when this idea is that they're treated as like a servant or whatever, like this chastisement, basically discipline is introduced, then that discipline is on the basis of the foundation of love. So it's clear to the child. So that's why he was saying that under the age of 5, just shower them with love and affection. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about, now, obviously that doesn't mean the kid is completely wild or anything like that. That's not what Guru Maharaj meant. But the point was that the focus is entirely on showering them with love and affection. And so she was saying like, so Ram's 2.5, should we be waking him up and like doing a morning program? And Guru Maharaj said, no, just shower him with love and affection. So she tried another way and she was like, should we wake him up at this time? And I said, no, like repeat. So she must have asked like 3 different ways. And Guru Maharaj was like insistent, like, no, you don't have to worry about that stuff. Like you just have to just shower the child with love and affection. And and when he's ready, he'll take it up. And then she started on chanting. Should we get him to chant 1 round a day? Like back to the same. So like whichever, and in many ways, I think, at the time I was like, just stop now. He's already given the answer. But in many ways, I'm glad that she pushed it and kind of came at it from different perspectives, because it made it absolutely clear for me, like what the position, there was no ambiguity left, that the role at this point in time and the benefit of doing that, like I could practically see it. So like after, as the kids grew older, and between the ages of 5 and 15, where I was needing to discipline them, chastise them, all the rest of it, like I could see they could just completely take it. Like they had there was no problem with it, because it was, that the instruction that Guru Maharaj gave us was, we did really try and follow it. And where we were unable, or I personally didn't follow it, those stand out as moments of real regret that I didn't, and do it in the way that Guru Maharaj said, because it's definitely the way to do it. And so, and then after 15, like treating as a friend and giving them responsibility and kind of that type of interaction. And he made this point that between he said up to the age of 8 for the boy, that the interaction with the mother is really important. That, it's really important that they feel the presence and love of the mother up to the age of 8. And after the age of 8, the father's presence and role becomes even more important, so that there's a transition. And again, it's very interesting. Like I was observing it because I'd heard this instruction of Guru Maharaj, like the psychology of the child does change. And that's why there are key stages in education, because it refers to stages of child development and psychological development. And at the age of that, like 8ish, like that's when the child also becomes much more philosophically attuned and aware. And it moves from, like that just pure love and affection kind of thing to where they require certain things to be more logical, philosophically, like whatever explained, etc., and the role of the father in that process. And while he was speaking and explaining these things, my uncle, my father's eldest brother, he was also there, and he has 4 daughters, so he only has daughters. So he said, obviously all grown up, but he asked the question, what about girls? Like you're speaking about the boy should transition from the mother to the father at age 8. What about girls? And Guru Maharaj said, yeah, for girls, actually, they can stay with the mother. Like they don't necessarily need to make that transition. For them, the presence of the mother is always like throughout. And so in these ways, like sometimes I personally hesitate to speak about these things just because they can be taken out of context and they can be misapplied. And we're speaking here like with devotees who know Guru Maharaj's mood and intention, and that the point that there will always be exceptions to these rules, right? Like these are general overarching rules which are set as kind of direction forming for us. And so besides the exceptions and besides the different kind of nuances that we have to be intelligent enough to apply to our own circumstance and situation, these general rules are really very, very valuable. And like for me, one of the things I learned from that was that in many, like, because I'm involved in different, like parts of ISKCON or services and like that. And there's so many different conversations about the importance of different projects and services and these things. But one thing that really struck me about that conversation was I realized then that there is nothing more important than the mother's service of raising a child between the ages of 0 and 5, or like even, in the womb to age 5. Like that service is, I can't think of a more important service in the world than that service. It's like, it's such an important thing. And that came to me like through that conversation with Guru Maharaj, like when he was speaking about these things, that love and affection which the mother showers on the child at that age sets the child up for the rest of their life. And you can't take away from. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to go on, but that's an example of something that really affected me.
It's really nice point you made, Navin, because Guru Maharaj was such a gentleman and he was so cultured. He was so cultured. He, even with his female disciples, I know the way he treated, I can speak for myself. He would really chastise the brahmacharis, but he would shower us with so much affection. And, I remember serving in Guru Maharaj's rooms in Mayapur, and he would get angry, and, Guru Maharaj, when his eyes would become bigger, and, he would be like, you just know it's coming, and all the brahmacharis would just run off. And, I never had to run off because I knew Guru Maharaj would never, he treated, he really appreciated what his female disciples brought, and he was so happy when, like we had our children, and like you focus on your child, and, forget your career, forget your this, forget your that, and, the child is the most important service. Like Prabhupada said, is deity worship. And Guru Maharaj one time told me that when there is a deep bond of, when there is a deep bond of affection between husband and wife, then the children that are born are of very strong character. He said that. So it's very important to have, loving relationships, and, family. The unit is so important, and women have such an indispensable role. Just the way Guru Maharaj treated us. He never, I think in my entire 33 years of knowing Guru Maharaj, he probably chastised me maybe twice. And that also, he was so apologetic after, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. That was so cultured and so wonderful. Thank you, Navin. It was so nice to have you. Any other questions or comments? Prashan Prabhu, I know you're here. Would you like to say something? Where's Prashan Prabhu? Oh, Tulsi Manjari has her hand up. Prashan Prabhu, would you like to say something? Would you like to comment? Is Prashan Prabhu there? Okay, I can't see him anymore. Oh, Hare Krishna from Prashan Prabhu. Would you like to say something, Prashan Prabhu? Would you like to comment?
You're on mute, Prashan Prabhu.
Sorry. Hello, Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhu, we can hear you. Hare Krishna.
I've had the great privilege of knowing Navin Krishna for 20 years. And I really can't venerate him more than anybody else. Really, he's just an extraordinary devotee, exemplary in all aspects. And as I say, it's been a privilege to know him. And I mean, owe it his commitment to Maharaj and commitment to ISKCON. And he's inspiring so many young people all over the world, particularly in London. And as I say, it's just a privilege to witness it on a daily basis. I had the good fortune of working with him in some of the projects earlier on. And as I said, completely exemplary. I couldn't actually suggest a better role model for all the young devotees in our community. Sorry, I'm not prepared. I just, there's so many things I can see, so many examples I could recite, but I would need some time to think about them. Hare Krishna.
I know one thing, Guru Maharaj always wanted us to think big. And Navin, you have really pleased Guru Maharaj by your services, thinking big and doing big. Guru Maharaj always wanted it. He always thought big and wanted us to do something extraordinary. He was always very happy with devotees who did something extraordinary. And you brought so much glory to Guru Maharaj. I mean, Tulsi Manjari has her hand up. Tulsi, would you like to?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. I have a very quick question for Prabhu. Thank you very much, Navin Krishna Prabhu, for sharing such beautiful moments and instructions from Guru Maharaj. Did you ever have any conversation or any direct instruction about from Guru Maharaj about bringing how to bring children? into Krishna consciousness? Because I'm asking this, I'll just give you the background, because when I last met Guru Maharaj in person, when he was in, he was attending, he was visiting Spain, Malaga. I live in Gibraltar. So we went on to Spain to see Guru Maharaj at Vinod Vihari Prabhu's house. And Guru Maharaj gave me one instruction for my daughter. And she was just a newborn at that time. It was 2019. She was born on 23rd of June, and Guru Maharaj was here on 23rd of July. So she was just 1 month old. And Guru Maharaj, I just took her to Guru Maharaj, and I said, I just wanted to offer her to Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj gave her a blessing. Then Guru Maharaj said, let her decide. I didn't get an opportunity later to speak to Guru Maharaj about what Guru Maharaj meant, but we understand Guru Maharaj's mood, that not to push a child. But I wanted to hear from you, because we have the privilege of hearing from you today, that do you have any kind of direct instruction about how to introduce Krishna consciousness to children? I mean, Krishna consciousness, like getting them to be committed. And I hope I'm able to communicate my question. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I don't, I'm trying to recollect in terms of very specific direct instructions. I can though say at different ages, I saw how Guru Maharaj was dealing with the different age groups in Pandasena, and like how he was encouraging them to become committed in Krishna consciousness, and also with young children, like he did with our kids. As you say, like first and foremost, he was very much about just at that young age, just provide them with the security and love that they need, and
yes,
by your own practice and your own example, that they will naturally kind of see that as a positive thing in their life, and then that impression is created at a young age. So at a young age, it was very much kind of almost like spontaneous, that he was saying that let it be spontaneous for them, that they'll pick up things that they're inspired towards and practice the things that they want to do, rather than us. And then as they grow older, that there are more and more things which they're exposed to, and we provide them opportunities for, but even at those stages that they're taking them up themselves. So I think I saw that where he was making the point that, like, if we just have these things that we're arranging for them, we're offering them, we have it as an opportunity, they know the door's always open, they know that others are, that there's always an opportunity for them to do something, and whichever things that they may feel inclined towards. And the second aspect was around association, because at a certain point, a lot of it also depends on what their friends are doing, and kind of like, that kind of the peer stuff. So he was also conscious and telling us about how within Pandasena, to create that kind of atmosphere and environment where it was like mutually encouraging, and so that young people felt that this was something that they wanted, by their own volition, felt it was something that they wanted to be involved in. Because I think that's the challenge. Like when kids get, as I was saying, up into the age of primary school, which is like 11 years old ish, up until that age, kids will pretty much do whatever you ask them to do. Like most kids are very compliant. They're very naturally inclined towards KC. It's when they hit their teens that there's a chance that they may, reject whatever. And I think he also detected this very interesting dynamic, that in their teens also, they want kind of almost like they have like almost like a rebellious thing. So that rebellious thing that arises, like how to channel that rebellious nature. And it's the way, if we become like the authority and Casey becomes the authority, then that rebellion is against an authority. So it's a rebellion against Casey because it's being forced on them. But if the material kind of nature and energy is like the thing that they're rebelling against, and Krishna consciousness is the thing which allows them to rebel, because it's so exciting and innovative and all of those types of things, then we have the best of both worlds, because then they're taking Casey out of their own volition and they're practicing it because they know it's the rebellion against the material energy. And even though those, what I just said, those are not his own words, but it was definitely the message that I got from his dealings and interaction with us, and something that we've really tried hard to preserve in Pandasena, and we find is so effective in helping people come to and stay in Krishna consciousness and feel like they're dedicating their lives to it, because they feel like they're doing something really exciting and interesting and fun. And he, like I said, like the things that he would arrange for Pandasena when he would come and do things with us, they were always just so fun. They were like, you know, he wanted it to be fun for the kids, and he would do like kirtan, and he'd give a class, and he would do all of that also. But he was always so conscious that that it was interesting and fun, and yeah. So yeah, I sorry, it's a roundabout way of answering the question, only because I can't point to any very like specific words of instruction on that point about how to engage them to give, you know, to dedicate their lives more fully, other than in this way, which was almost indirect. But I think that in itself is a lesson. You know, we can, yeah, it's just, yeah, let's create the kind of atmosphere where they want to do it themselves.
So thank you so much, Navin. We bring this session to a close.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and sharing with us your realizations and your experiences with Guru Maharaj. And thank you very much for all your services. Haribol Navin. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.